According to Sumner, the most plausible criterion for moral standing is sentience. That is to say that the moral standing of the fetus will gradually develop as the fetus gradually develops the capacity to experience pain and pleasure. And Sumner believes that this criterion for moral standing, sentience, gains support in a few different ways. First of all, notice that if we set the boundary or the bar for moral standing at sentience, then that is setting the bar slightly lower than if we were to set the bar at a certain level of rationality or intelligence. Presumably, one must first be sentient in order to be rational or intelligent, but you do not necessarily have to be rational or intelligent to be sentient. You could fulfill this criterion for moral standing without being highly rational or intelligent. So notice this accounts for the moral standing of someone who is severely mentally handicapped, perhaps something that Marianne Warren's account could not do. So setting the bar at sentience sets the bar a little bit lower and therefore allows for the moral standing of mentally handicapped human beings, but also perhaps some non-human animals. Some other animal species could potentially meet this bar of moral standing, this criterion. Um, Sumner also would want us to recognize that sentience accords with a couple of essential features of morality. And according to Sumner, morality generally is concerned with the well-being or the welfare of different creatures or beings, but also impartiality, right? Having equal consideration for the interests of different beings. And as we are somewhat familiar, sentience plays right into these two features of morality. Um, to be concerned about a being's welfare seems to mean being concerned for the pain or pleasure that that being is experiencing. Morality is often concerned with, harm toward others. But what is harm other than an experience of pain, some kind of negative experience that only sentient beings can have? Furthermore, to have an interest and to equally consider the interests of all beings seems to go hand in hand with considering the sentient capacities of all beings. That is to say, if a being is sentient, if a being is able to experience pain and pleasure, if a being is able to be harmed, then we must impartially consider that being and how our actions affect that being. These are all kind of common sense, very intuitional moral ideas and principles, and the sentience criterion seems to go hand in hand with them. Um, and then finally, Sumner points out that a plausible criterion for moral standing should be grounded in a moral theory that more broadly and deeply explains the nature of morality. And again, as we are aware, the sentience criterion is grounded in a moral theory, the most obvious of which is utilitarianism. Um, so that is to say, if you find utilitarianism to be plausible, then you should find this criterion for moral standing to be plausible. So for all of these reasons, Sumner believes that sentience is an independently plausible criterion for moral standing. It works in all of these different ways.